Welcome to Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. Join the Podcast Mogul Phil Better as he interviews successful entrepreneurs that make their living in the digital world. Now, let's join your host, Phil Better, and his special guest today on Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. I am, of course, your host with most, Phil Better. And today I'm very excited that we have a returning guest, an amazing entrepreneur coach. He's in podcasting world now. I don't know what he does. Please welcome Jeremy. Jeremy, welcome back to the show.
Hey, Phil, thank you. I'm super stoked to be back. We're both northerners, so I don't know about you, but the weather is finally breaking here, so the sun feels actually good for once.
So the last few days have been crap for us. We had one day of like nice sun and we're like, yay. And then it went raining, and gloomy. But, you know, April showers bring May flowers. And I know May's going to look great because I looked at the forecast. So like May's in a few weeks. I'm looking forward to everything that's happening this week. But Jeremy, you said you wanted to come back because you have this monumental voice that you want to talk about, you know, maybe something in media. But so Jeremy, quick recap, introduce yourself for the audience that's just meeting you for the first time and
Sure.
Let us know a bit about you.
All right. Awesome. Well, it's great to be back. Phil always does an amazing job with his podcast, so I'm honored to be back with the host with the most. We'll give you the 90-second version because you can go back and listen to the first episode and hear a little bit more in-depth version of my story. But I've been a working musician for the last 20 years in terms of being freelance, touring, and doing lots of studio work. In that time, I became an author, which last time we talked about my book on here, Road to 99. So make sure to grab your copy. And I do a little bit in the real estate world for the investing folks. And recently, which is why we're here today, is while I was being interviewed on a podcast, my business partner, Danny, found me as an audio engineer and creative, and we partnered and created Monumental Voice Media, which produces audiobooks for authors. And we also are producing podcast in a done-for-you kind of system as anything else to do with the voice, and producing a voice for yourself and for your brand is really kind of what our focus on is, kind of just activating your voice. Now we can use that activation, whether it's through a podcast or through an audiobook or voiceover work, some of those kinds of things, with some visions of grandeur that are actually coming towards the end of 2023, depending on when you're listening to this podcast, in some much bigger spaces in terms of music and audio and film. So
little tease. You're definitely going to be coming back in 2024 or when you hit those goals. That's for sure.
Exactly.
I have to start reaching out to previous guests, bring them back and get updates, because this is just a short while. You were like 2 or 3 seasons ago, and now you're back and you got this Monumental Voice Media. So how did this come about? You said it was on a podcast. You were on an episode with a podcast talking about stuff. And then did he afterwards, was it like, hey, we should partner together?
I mean, that's the really short, easy version of it. I was being interviewed on a friend of mine podcast, and the producer, who Danny, was the one that was producing and editing the episode. And after hearing the things I've done in the music world, in my creative space, and just my willingness to, you know, work hard, but also like a little bit of a longing of like, there's only so many people you can help create a music album. Like it's less than like 3% of the population, but like everybody should have a podcast if they own a business. So like that opens up a whole new market. And he was growing the audio version of the podcast done for you space. And he was just getting to a point where he was getting like, it was too much. And he found me and he's like, hey, can we talk? And originally it was more just like, hey, Jeremy, maybe you want to think about this space like as another revenue stream for my studio. And the more we talked, the more the synergy just came, like, we just need to do this together, because we found like the skills he has and the skills I have. We're just a great match because we filled gaps, which I think is really important when you're talking about a partnership in business.
Mhm.
You probably know a little bit about this, Phil, because you were just telling me about a new
A few
adventure
new
you were
things
on as
going
well.
on. Yeah.
And so like being able to fill each other's gaps, and really that creates a great strength and synergy inside of a business. And so we've been able to we've recently now have a full-time audio editor, now have a full-time video editor and social media person. So like can get to where we wanted to be after we talked about this, which is client facing, helping strategy, helping people build it, and traveling and meeting new people and getting new people into our system.
So you're really trying, you created systems so that you can work on the business instead of in the business, instead of doing the audio engineering that we know as podcasters and audio engineers is the worst part of it. It's the most time consuming, depending on how you do your edits and all
Yep.
that. Like this podcast is a very basic edit. I make sure there's not too many pops, not too many low drops, and take any spaces that have long-winded spaces out if necessary, or empty spaces. But there's some podcasts that want it to be crystal and make it sound delicious. And obviously you being an expert in making sound crisp and clear. And I am far from that. I am just a guy who likes to hear his own voice. Not really. I hate my voice.
Most people do.
Oh yeah.
Most people do.
It's funny. And when I tell people that, they're like, but you're a podcaster. I'm like, yes, but I don't listen to my stuff. I only have to hear the other person, and then it's like, oh, that's great. And then I read the transcripts because that's better for me than listening to my voice. But I have trauma from that. From a previous job has traumatized me for my voice. But I like how you mentioned that you found someone that fills in your weaknesses, that fills in those gaps that you're missing. Because I think there's a lot right now on solopreneuring it up to a place where like, oh, I was a solopreneur. But when you say you're a solopreneur, they don't mention that, hey, I hired this person to do that, this person. That's taking out your weaknesses so that you can work on your business. You found someone that you can work with to build the business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been wonderful. And, we have access to different networks, and we find like, you can really play off of that, and you can use each other to help build and support. Like, Daniel would be like, Jeremy, I really don't want to do that. I'm like, cool, I'll do it because I love to do that.
Yeah.
And I love how you said this idea of delegating. It's like, and we were intentional about when we found a video editor and we found an audio editor, we wanted it to be people who actually liked doing that work. Mm-hmm. We don't really enjoy it. We can do it and execute it. Obviously, we were the people who created it and created the systems to make it happen. And so we're always also willing to step in to make sure the client is taken care of and all of those things. But finding people that actually enjoy that, like our audio editors, like, I actually like this. I'm like, okay, cool. I
have
like
my torment
to do it. I love paying you to do it. Actually, it's wonderful. And now let me go get 10 more people so that now you never want to leave.
Mm-hmm. I think that is where we're going in the new economy, like where we are right now. A lot of people are moving into that entrepreneurial space and building those businesses either by themselves and outsourcing, which allows people who work in the gig economy that don't really want to be in a business as an employee, but want that freedom that they can do their job from anywhere. So right. I think that's the new career. Do you feel like that's probably where we're going? The idea of a career is being shifted to the more gig economy because it's working?
I really do think that. In fact, oddly enough, my daughter, who is almost 20 now, I just partnered with her on a new company because she's like, I like working, Dad, and I work hard, but like, I want these other opportunities and these other options. I'm like, okay, cool. How about we do this thing over here? She's like, I love that. Great. Now I can, what a great opportunity as a father to like nurture and help somebody that's in that millennial kind of space. I use that term loosely because I don't want it to mean anything other than it's a time period. But she works hard and she wants to do things. And I'm like, and she's inspired. I'm like, why would you not encourage that? And I'm seeing that a lot more. Even the folks that we work with or contract with to do some of the work that we're doing, they might have their own businesses and they can be autonomous inside of that. It's like, we would rather bring in people that really love to do what they want to do and grow in their space. People are going to kind of come in and out, but I really do agree, like that gig economy. I mean, I've been a gigging musician for 20 years, so I know that world very well.
And I think because that you have so many creatives like yourself who lived in the gig economy, and we're showing the rest of us who were never in that gig economy. Like I was a 9-to-5er. I always punched in, punched out. I knew my hours. I didn't know in the gig world, you can make a living. And now with like COVID showing like remote work is super possible. There's a lot of businesses looking for remote workers because they're like, hey, it's cheaper. I don't have to pay rent for a building. I don't have to, I can pay them extra because I'm saving so much money, and then we can reinvest it in the staff. I want to know, what do you think will happen to big corporations that don't take on this like gig mentality lifestyle?
That's a really great question. I think there's going to have to be a somewhat of a shift. And the reason I say somewhat is there are still plenty of people who want the 9-to-5. There's still plenty of people that want just they want a job. They want to go to work and they want to go home from work and they want to leave it. And that's okay. Not everybody wants the entrepreneur lifestyle or the gig lifestyle. It is stressful. It is work. There are lots of ups and downs potentially until you get to a plateau or at least a sustainable space. But I think that big corporations already are doing that. You're seeing them like vacate entire floors of buildings, and people are working remote or they're hiring remote because they can. And I like that you added, and because we believe in this too, is like, we're not investing in brick and mortar, so we're investing in our people so we can compensate them more and take care of them better, which I think is just a better way of doing business anyway. And in terms of like the gig economy, from my standpoint, what I really learned was I actually had a lot of business and entrepreneurial skills from working in that space for so long that I'm finding ways to now translate that and help other entrepreneurs or other business owners grow their business because I had all of that experience. I just didn't know that's what it was. I was networking, I was marketing, I was personal brand, all of those kinds of things that we talk about in a build your business space or launch your brand or however you want to approach it. I just found that I was like, wow, I'm already been doing all those things for 20 years. Well, I can tell you how to do that. And I can tell you from a creative space, and, that bootstrap mentality of like, we only can put in what we have because that's all we have,
That's why I love having you on. You have like a wealth of knowledge that you can share to the listeners that are coming up, because it is important. Like I'm in my mind, and this is how I see the entrepreneurial world kind of going, is the youth will probably work for some corporations for a certain amount of time because they need to get their footing. They need to get their learning if they don't go straight into entrepreneurship and for those 9-to-5. But I feel at a certain point, they're going to be like, the company doesn't value me anymore, because that's what a lot of people have come to realize. But those companies that do allow that remote working probably will have longer lasting employees. But those ones that don't, I see them jumping off and taking their skills and monetizing it in the rest of the world because they can make a large sum of money more.
Right. And it potentially is more sustainable. I was having a conversation with a HR consulting firm last week, and they use the phrase human capital. Like that's what they're talking about with businesses. Like, how are you creating the most amount of human capital to keep employees and making your company attractive? So when you talk about it from like, how long are they going to stay, and, you're going to always have attrition and people are going to cycle out and get promoted. And then you got to fill those spots from the bottom up. But I just thought that was a really interesting phrase to use. Because, like, how do we make this benefit the employee the most? So it's like it's already shifting a little bit at that corporate level to make them think like, okay, these people are going to learn the skills, they're going to take the knowledge, and they're going to learn this thing, and then they're going to go do their own thing because they're like, we can make more money. We're in control of our day, our time, our investments, our energy, all of those kinds of things. The reason we got into entrepreneurship, at least that's what it was for me.
I was annoyed being told what I have to do every day and doing the same thing every day. And my days can vary, like my Wednesdays and Thursdays. I know those are going to be my most challenging days because I have interviews on interviews, but
Right.
the rest of my week is whatever I want it to be. I'm like, hey, I have meetings. Cool. Who do I get to chat to? And how can I change someone's life with a podcast or something like that? That's what's so much fun. Because it's a different day. Instead of working 9 to 5, getting yelled at by Karen or some angry customer in customer service, or having to deal with the stress of, oh my God, I have to make ends meet. It's like, no, the only ends meet I have to make is I put on myself. If I don't work, I don't make money. So,
Right. Because there's also that. Some
Mhm.
people forget that. They're like, oh, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I'm like, well, you still have to put in the work because if you're not sending out invoices, you're not getting the money back.
If you don't see the bank account going up every 2 weeks or however you want to be paid, you ain't an entrepreneur. You're a dreamer with no plan. But you started Monumental Voice Media, and you mentioned before off air that you have an event coming up. It's going to be in a few days, actually. It's May 9th, correct? It's May 9th, the event?
Yeah. May 9th, Tuesday, May 9th.
So what is this event?
This is actually awesome for probably a lot of your audience because the event is created by Jessica Dennehy. She's a coach and entrepreneur. She actually owns barbershops, which is pretty cool in the Long Island area. And she created this as a free meetup event for entrepreneurs to just come and learn and grow. Her master kind of plan or thought behind it is that it's like a mastermind kind of evening, but it's like a chance to have a meal and network. And then she brings in some sort of entrepreneur speaker every month. And so this month, May 9th, will be myself and Danny as kind of this Monumental Voice Media team and talking about voicing your brand and voicing your business and how you can use a podcast to do that or an audiobook to do that. But it's a free event. It's from 6 to 9 p.m. at 317 Main. It's a restaurant and music venue in Farmingdale, New York. So it's on Long Island.
There we go. And so, like, you're obviously going to be speaking about how you use podcasting and audiobooks to build the brand. For my listeners, let's say they know they need to have an audiobook. What's a tip or what is something you can suggest so that they can make it a little easier to get to the stage where they need to hire you so that you guys can produce this audio classic for them?
In terms of the audiobook?
Yeah, like how can they make it, what's something that can make your life easier when they come to you, but because they set it up properly beforehand coming to you?
Right. The first thing is just write a good book that you want to share your story. I know that sounds easy, but I mean, if it's not a good book, people aren't going to read it and they probably won't listen to the audio. However, just know the book. Something really interesting and fun we've been doing with our authors lately is not just reading the book as a manuscript. Obviously you want that, but give those audiobook listeners something they can't get from the print book. And so we've been allowing and encouraging authors to be like, add a little story here. Tell us why you chose that part, or tell us why you chose this thing in your book, and give the listener a little bit of background information. So then it becomes like almost like you're putting a podcast at the end of every chapter. And it gives the listener a little bit more insight into what happened in the process of the audiobook. It definitely builds the know, like, and trust factor for those people who might be looking into your business or they want to work with you. But the couple of tips I have always for authors is read through your book a couple of times out loud. Because when we read something with our eyes only, our brain is interpreting it at a certain pace. But when we have to actually speak it, it is very different. And so just practicing that, reading through the whole book out loud a couple times. And then we have like a tip sheet, like get rest, drink water, don't drink milk, don't eat pasta, right? Because those are all things that bring our energy down. And, just some of those fun going to the studio tips that I use for doing vocal sessions when I'm recording artists here. And so it's very similar. And what we're trying to do is produce a performance of your audiobook. So it's not just like this dry, monotonous voice. It's your voice. And nobody tells your story like you do.
I like that. Those are also very great tips if you're a podcaster as well. So you're getting a double dose of advice here on the show. So far, I want to... What do you see coming forward for the company, for Monumental Voice Media? Where is it that you want to go? Like you alluded to something big at the end of the year. Don't have to tell us. Maybe give us maybe more of a global picture of where we're going.
Well, I'll give you a little bit of an idea. And we talked about this a couple of weeks ago on our podcast, which is notice what the streaming industry is doing to the film industry and how it has changed from Hollywood studios and blockbuster movies and all these big theater performances. And now most of it, like Netflix and Hulu and Prime and Paramount and Peacock, they all have their own studios, which means they're making all of their own original content. I only see that continuing. And it's kind of what you said, from corporate to entrepreneur. I'm seeing it go from theater to individual filmmakers. And so if you can imagine a media company of a couple of audio producers and really great copywriters, where we might be headed towards the end of this year. We have some meetings this summer out west that I'm super excited about.
I definitely want to talk to you now after this podcast, because I have some ideas I want to share, because I'm on the same wavelength of you as where I see things going. But we're going to jump, because we're coming to near the end of the episode. We're going to get to the spark question for my audience. They know the spark question is the spark conversation between you and a stranger, because a stranger is just a friend you haven't met yet, by the boys over at Seek Discomfort. Have you ever felt like you could truly, like I said, you have to read these a few times. Your tips coming in. Eyes faster than the mouth. Have you ever felt like you could never truly repay someone for something they did for you? And explain.
That's fantastic. Yes. Here's the perfect one.
Okay.
I think it's this is a very intimate one I'm going to share. But it was actually the night that my dad passed away and took his last breath. We were alone in the room together. And he took that last breath, and just like the words of like, I'm proud of you. I'm always with you. I can never repay that. But it was the most heartfelt, the saddest, but also the most joyous moment of my life until at that point. And I get to live with that all of the time in a very like proud and thankful and gracious way. And I don't take it lightly.
On that emotional note, I'm going to jump off, because I can't say anything, because that is not only a truly memorable moment to have, and as a like I never, like, obviously it's going to happen to me, and it's something like, no, I don't want to happen, but I can understand the impactfulness that would hear, that you could feel from hearing that from your father, someone that you admire. Like, wow. I'm going to shut up now. I'm going to jump off stage here. Jeremy, let my audience know where they can find out more about the event and how they can follow anything you want to let them know about. Okay, the floor, sir, is yours.
Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for today. It was an amazing episode. I always love talking to Phil. The best place to reach me, it would be, you can reach out at monumentalvoicemedia.com. if you want to pick up my book or learn a little bit more about that, you can go to Road to 99 and use the numbers 9 and 9.com to check out the book. You can search my name on any of the socials. Please feel free to reach out, connect, ask questions. I'm an open book, and I love to help others, especially those starting and wanting to grow their business. So thank you very much.
Jeremy, I can't thank you enough for being on the show. I'm always happy to connect with you. We always have some great talks in our DMs and that. So it's great to have you back on the show, sharing your knowledge, sharing the big event that's happening this Tuesday, May 9th. So make sure you go ahead. If you're out in Long Island, New York, go check it out. It's at
It's called 317 Main. And I think that's actually the address, 317 Main.
If it is, that's genius.
The name of the restaurant. It's fantastic. The food is incredible, I hear. So I can't wait.
Oh, I'm jealous of you. And it's New York. So, if it's pizza, it's going to be delicious. So, check out 317 Main. The venue is May 9th. The links, of course, will be in the show notes down below for you guys to follow also Jeremy, but also get your tickets or figure out how to get there. And if you're listening past May 9th, hey, maybe they have an online version. I don't know. But make sure to connect with Jeremy anyways to get maybe some feedback on what happened there. Jeremy, I thank you so much for coming back on the show. It's always a pleasure to chat with you.
I love it. Thank you.
You're very welcome. And to my audience, remember to always invest in yourself.